Independence City Council meeting. It's Tuesday, December 21st, 2021 at 6:30 in the evening. Let the record show that council is all here and happy that it's not raining tonight. We have a slightly varied agenda from normal, but we're moving promptly forward, just following the written agenda here. Karen, I don't see anybody here with visitor comments. I think you have something.
Yes, I was asked to read this for the council. Dear Honorable Mayor and members of the council, I have just reviewed the YouTube video of the last council meeting and was shocked, but not particularly surprised, to see the discussion of the appointment to the Planning Commission of Kelly McWilliams. In all the years I served the city and what I know of past times, this may have been the first time that such outsized partisan politics played a role in determining the qualifications of a candidate to serve their community in a nonpartisan seat. This is the first council to have made partisan politics a litmus test to serve in appointed positions. There is a place for partisan politics, and that place is the election. Certainly there was plenty to be had on all sides during the 2020 election. But after the election in municipalities, politics end and governance begins. This is not a state or federal government where politics never end. Cities are designed intentionally to provide basic services to all its residents, visitors, and business communities without regard to party affiliation or political leanings. This council has changed that much for the worse for independence. The progress this city made during my tenure as city manager and the city managers before me was made due to the commitment to good governance and for the benefit of all. The city manager before me had political values that were largely the polar opposite of mine. Nonetheless, we engaged in a mostly seamless handoff because politics have virtually nothing to do with operations. The councils and the mayor understood that, and we all worked for the betterment of our community. What Ms. McWilliams, someone who I have, as far as I know, never met, did in the effort to get elected was just that, partisan politics in the furtherance of an election campaign. She lost and her competition won. That was fair because the voters had spoken. But to now punish someone for a failed campaign is a mirror of politics from elsewhere in this country and has no business being part of the council's decision making. I am deeply saddened by this because I know the same values were applied to the conversation about my own appointment to, of all bodies, the Parks Committee. I was pleased to be appointed in spite of that, but my feelings then are what they are now. As an aside, if there is any likelihood that a person being considered for a volunteer role is likely to be challenged on their qualifications, wouldn't it be fair to either invite that person in advance or delay a vote so that they can attend in the future to respond to concerns? Sabotage is not democracy. Stop playing politics with city business. The people of this city deserve much better. David Klein.
Thank you, Karen, for taking the time to read that. We don't have anybody else, so I'm going to keep us moving forward at this point. I think, Chief Mason, I think you're handling GNR auto wrecking renewal, please.
Yes, Mayor, I am. So in your packets, there is a staff report from Sergeant Banuelos, and this is an annual renewal of the wrecker license for GNR auto wreckers, which is at 4645 Independence Highway. I would note that we were welcomed onto the property and allowed unlimited access to all buildings and business files. And Sergeant Banuelos notes that there were no deficiencies observed as related to the statutory requirements for the business. I think we told you this a meeting or two ago, but these have become annual instead of every 3 year. So you may see us more frequently bringing these in for your approval.
Any questions for the speaker this evening on this matter? This is an action item.
Excuse me, Mayor, is there some reason why we didn't approve the minutes from the last meeting?
They were.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I did not have them prepared in time to get in the packet.
Thank you for the point out. Okay. GNR wrecking renewal.
I'll I'll move to approve the renewal of GNR Annual Supplemental Business Certificate and authorize the interim city manager to sign the application.
I second that.
Motion second by Counselor Job. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Chief, are you taking this, or is Mr. Christensen?
I've got this as well.
Thank you.
This is next item up. There is a memo in your packets, and this is requesting approval for me to sign a contract for professional services for our grants coordinator position. This was largely underway by Mr. Pessamir, all the way to a point of identifying the top applicant. We've negotiated in a contract with the top applicant, and because the amount of that contract is over $50,000, I'm here today to ask your permission to engage him in that. As a side note, I would like to point out that while the dollar amount seems high, to the first glance, it is a 2-year contract, and it is a position that doesn't have employment with the city, so no benefits or other costs are being paid along with that. So a quick analysis would say that that's about a 45% savings. We would have to pay 45% more if we were employing them as an actual city employee. So really the overall is about a $55,000 a year salary, if you wanted to look at it that way, if that helps.
Great. Counselors, if you recall in the memo that this was previously put in the budget, this discussed, and we're going through the formalities of that. Are there any questions for the chief related to this matter?
Just a comment that I am personally acquainted with the candidate, and I think he has the skills to fulfill this position with great alacrity.
What was the word?
Alacrity.
Oh, good.
Your word for the day.
Thank you. I didn't know that. Okay. So is that a motion?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's a
I
motion
would gladly
That's a
second.
motion to approve, and that's a second by Kathy Martin-Willis. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed. Motion carries. Okay. We are in that funny zone right now where the candidates, the two firms that are coming are coming on time specific. Is that correct?
They are. They're coming at 7:30.
Okay.
I do know that one is on the way up. That's why I just left for a second.
Okay.
So we will get everything prepared for that, and then you're great.
Okay, so what I'm asking here is, would they be ready to go? Or are they is the first one the first one?
Yes.
And would they be ready to go 10 minutes early? Is that?
I'll ask her when she gets to the lobby.
Does that seem okay with everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so let's plan to get we're just going to be in recess till about 11 minutes till. Is that okay? Okay, we're in recess till 11 minutes to 7. So anyway. Okay. Good. Karen, you good? Is that a yes? Okay, we're back from recess here, and we're officially in a work session now. And what we're doing here, just for the audience, is that we are interviewing firms to handle the city manager recruitment, since we need a city manager. As much as we'd love to keep our police chief as a city manager, I think he'd like to eventually go back to wearing a uniform there. And so, anyway.
Chiefing.
So we're going to go a little bit out of order than what's on the agenda. We're going to do WBCP first. The folks involved knew that, so they're okay. And so they're going to have half an hour to make a presentation to us, and we'll go from there. So with that, good evening. Welcome to the City of Independence and to the Independence City Council.
Thank you. All right, well, let me introduce myself. My name is Wendy Brown. I'm the president of WBCP. We are recruiting an HR consulting firm that has been in business since 2004. And I don't know if we're going to have a PowerPoint somewhere. Okay. Whenever you're ready. Okay, yeah, if you want to go ahead and get it started, that'd be great. So first, before we get started, I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. Love your town, cute little downtown, probably one of the cutest I've seen, so good job. Again, thank you for the opportunity. I'll start a little bit about my background personally. I started in public sector in the late 90s, working for the County of Orange in California. At the time, I was working in the CEO Human Resources Department, with 25 decentralized departments, with HR managers reporting up to my boss, the director. And I started because I was working to roll out a communications campaign. Prior to public sector, I was in marketing communications, so you'll see that kind of interlaced into all of the things that I do in recruiting these days. They decided to build me up as a generalist, handed me a recruitment, and I said, oh, this is marketing. I love marketing, so that kind of turned into an internal consulting role, working across all 25 departments in the County of Orange, working on all the department head recruitments, as well as training other recruiters and working on hard to fill lower level civil service recruitment. So that's a little bit of my personal background. I took that into my own business in 2004, concentration in California, just because that's where I'm from, but actually I've been located in Southern Oregon for 20 years now. So I have a larger team. For a long time, we stayed a little bit more boutique. I have 12 employees now. We're expanding, and we are starting to make a little bit more of a presence in Oregon now that we're able to do that with more people. So we're starting to respond more to RFPs. We do have some clients in Southern Oregon, City of Medford, City of Ashland, City of Phoenix, and City of Grants Pass are the few that we've continued to work with in that area. And we're starting to look and hopefully work with Independence soon. So I won't spend a lot of time on this because I know you have your own questions, but I'll just kind of flip through. One of the things that I think separates us is that we have a very succinct process. We also are very involved in all phases of the recruitment process, as much as our clients want us to be and need us to be. The 6 phases here is on our website, but it just kind of goes through the initial phase of the kickoff, identifying the communications and engagement process, developing the core competencies and marketing campaign, rolling that out, doing all the headhunting. We'll get into the details of what that marketing campaign looks into. And then, of course, all the communications and all the other things that go along with that, both with our candidates as well as our clients, screening candidates for the ideal candidate profile that we've identified, and then all the way through interviews, supporting that, and background and reference checks. So I just kind of talked about that, our marketing and communications background. I think that's definitely been a strength of ours, especially when it comes to reaching an audience and targeting an audience. We customize our recruitments. We know every city is not the same, even though the title might be the same. We really believe it's important for us to hear what you're looking for in an ideal candidate, not just you, but whoever you identify as a core stakeholder, your community and other folks that we will be talking to, and pulling all that information together to help us identify the ideal candidate. They'll also go through a screening process before they come to you. We'll get into a little bit more of those details in a minute, though. We also recognize the importance that we are representing you. Even though we're not your employee and we're not elected, we do recognize that everything we do has some reflection on our clients. So we make sure that you are branded as an employer of choice and everybody's treated with respect. And we listen. We listen to you, we listen to your community, and we listen to other folks that are going to be involved in the recruitment process to make sure that we're moving forward with the best candidates to meet your ideal candidate profile. Our HR partners love us. I hear all the time that we end up doing a lot more than other recruiters that they've worked with. We coordinate panels, we send out communications. We really do handle it from A to Z, and less if there's pieces of that puzzle that HR would like to manage. The background and references that we provide, we do have a retired chief of police as one of our consultants who does our background reference checks, although I'd be happy to work with your chief if you prefer. And so we do a great job there. And we've just definitely built great trust with our clients, and we have a 24-month guarantee for our city manager recruitments, which I think is a testament to the fact that we support, that we have a good track record in long-term stays. These are some of the city manager recruitments we've done. Most recently, the city of Ceres in California, we just did that one. We just also did the city of Santa Rosa in California. These are just some examples of our brochures, all of which I think you have samples of those in front of you. I think you'll see that that's a little different kind of brochure than you typically see from other firms. And then one of the things that we feel is really important, and obviously a very important piece for all of our clients that we work with, is 56% of our candidates placed in leadership positions with WVCP clients came from diverse backgrounds, both gender and ethnic diversity. So I do know that you have a considerable Latino population. We've also worked with a large national nonprofit organization, Latino nonprofit organizations. We worked with LPB, which is Latino Public Broadcasting, and then also the Radio Bilingüe, which is the largest nonprofit public radio station for Latino. So I won't go through a lot of this, but our clients do have a lot to say about our services. We have lots of these comments on our website, and I think we have the testament is really that we have great references from our clients. And I'll just open up to any questions you have. I know you have 8 questions that I have. I don't know if you want me to go through those or if you just want to.
Why don't you start with those and we'll go from there.
All right. Okay, so one of the first questions you had was building initial job profile. So as you can see from each of those recruitments brochures that we have, you can share them and pass them around. We aren't cookie cutter recruiters. We definitely do identify the ideal candidate. And you'll see that each of those city managers are a different candidate. The first question you have here is building the initial job profile is one of the most critical steps in the recruitment process. Talk about your approach to that and the engagement process you would use as a firm. So our initial kickoff meeting with you as elected officials will include that conversation. So we will give you recommendations, and then we'll together figure out what would be the best approach for your community. That could include a community survey. I highly recommend that I speak with all your department heads. We could also do an employee survey. For us to be able to connect. Pre-COVID, we would have community meetings for people who would like to show up to give their in-person. Right now, we're doing virtual. We could do a hybrid. So those are some options that we would weigh, and the information you'd be getting from those, and the pros to getting that information, as well as hearing from you what you're looking for in an ideal candidate. That will help create that profile that we're looking at. Any questions about that process? Yeah.
How do you reach out to the community to get input from them? Would it be email or social media?
Yeah, so that'll be some of the things that I'll be asking you. Usually there's a listserv that people have opted into, but we'll also recommend, if it's possible, for us to be able to put a link on your website for a survey. The survey typically is pretty easy. It takes about 3 minutes to complete.
Okay.
It's electronic. Not everybody has that, so there could be other ways that we could reach your audience as well. But that seems to be the easiest for the communities these days. And that would be like 40 different competencies, asking them to select the top 7 that are the most important to them. And then I would produce the results of that. We also give them a text box to be able to fill in different detailed information that if it wasn't on there, and something else they'd like us to know about the city manager position, they can fill that in. And then I would summarize that information and share that with you. Okay. And that will also be information that will help populate the brochure. Yes?
We have a little bit of survey overload in the community lately.
Yeah.
We do a lot of it. I still think it's important to do, and one of the
Right.
things that concerns me the most is I want to hear from residents how important it is that the city manager live here in town.
Right.
That's a lot of the feedback that we've gotten. Doesn't mean you can't be a good city manager if you don't live here, clearly. Our former city manager was very good, but that is definitely a topic that comes up a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. It comes up in every recruitment, honestly, even for department heads. So I mentioned that we could do it in person or virtual meeting where we would just do a community engagement meeting to hear what they'd be looking for in an ideal candidate. We don't usually get a large population that shows up, but even if we get 10 or 30 people, it gives people another avenue to be able to talk to me and talk to me about the ideal candidate outside of a survey.
Mayor, would it be at all helpful for them to talk to committees, commissions, and boards?
Yeah, whoever decides to, we decide on, we can instruct them where we would like them to go, because it's a joint relationship, and so at this point, we're just trying to figure out.
So that would be the other question I would ask as well, Mayor, is in that meeting, we would say, okay, there's the community, there's you, there's department heads, and usually there's other partnerships, whether it be another local community, your county, whatever that might be, or boards. And so we would set up either Zoom or individual calls with them to get their input as well. So, yep.
Great.
I have had as many as 60 in a front-end stakeholder engagement. I try to group as many people together as possible when I have that level of interest, but we've had a lot of people at the stakeholder engagement. And that's outside the community. That's just the special connection people. So.
I think we're not a unique community, but we're a pretty diverse community. And I think the challenge that I see with this is that our most vocal voices are either super left or right leaning. And I think our community needs someone more in the center, someone that can find common ground amongst a lot of different opinions. And so for me, it's going to be really important that we find someone who is nonpartisan, who wants to represent the entirety of the city and is not extreme on either side. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping that we can find more information on. How do we find that ideal candidate who is going to actually listen to the quiet voices of our city instead of the people who are shouting the loudest.
Right.
And that's frustrating a little bit sometimes.
I'm sure it is. So there's a process that we have, and then there's a process at interviews. There's a process pre-interview, and then there's a process at interview. So we can identify the ideal candidate in all of our marketing materials. Basically what that's going to do is attract the candidate. Now we have to identify if they're a good match. And that comes with just meeting and talking with the candidates. So the first phase of that is, of course, just reading through the resume. Resume can't probably tell you something like that, though. So then the next phase is doing a phone screen. So I do an hour phone screen with each of the candidates. For city manager recruitments, I prefer to do those virtually whenever possible, so I can actually see the candidate as well. That's when I'll get a chance to really start talking to them about all the great things that you can't read in a brochure about your city. Make sure we talk about relocation and salary and all the other things that keep people from being able to move forward if they get further along in the process. One of those is really what you're looking for in an ideal candidate, and also bringing that up if all members agree that that's what you're looking for in an ideal candidate. It's really talking to them about who they are in that voice. I would be hoping to hear that somebody who wants to be a city manager, if they've done a great job, in their career, nobody should really know what their political leanings are. That's my opinion. I think that they're here to serve the community and serve the elected officials that hired them, and they're to move forward with the goals of that community, and their political leanings shouldn't be something that people should probably even know about, preferably, so.
We're about halfway through, and I know you have some more questions, so I'm trying to be a facilitative.
All right.
Facilitative? Well, I created a new word.
And then if I could just conclude on that, though, because I think it's important, we develop behavioral-based questions for our interviews, and that will really get to challenges that they've had to address in different areas or past experiences for us to be able to identify their skill sets in certain areas. So that's it.
I appreciate you saying that. I know that we had some concern when we talked last week about having a firm that mostly represented California coming into Oregon, and how, so I wanted to ask you that so you could, show us that you can look beyond that and kind of just really focus on what the needs of our community are. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that really comes down to my marketing background. I mean, you have a couple of questions in here that say, who should we be looking for an ideal candidate? A great marketer doesn't look for what I want. I don't look for what my last client wanted. I look for what you want. So I do have that in my next question, though. And the next question is, Independence prides itself on being a leading edge community in many ways. Assuming that to be true, what are some of the attributes we might be seeking in a new city manager to continue the progress we are making and furthering of our brand? So I just happen to be a brand guru. That's my background prior to public sector. So I would want to find out what that brand is. So what is it that you want others to see? Independence? What have you done? I've done a little research. I'm sure I'd be able to find a lot more. What does leading edge community mean to you? So that will help me identify who you're looking for in an ideal candidate. I did put some notes down here about pretty much almost every city manager. You're looking for these main things. They're not necessarily attributes, but background or maybe some strengths in some specific areas. Usually one of them is fiscal leadership, fiscal management, in order for them to kind of make sure that they are able to manage the finances of the city, regulations, all the other things that come along with that role. The other would be leadership qualifications. That's really important. That goes, up, down, and sideways in the organization, and how they lead in the community, how they lead with you, how they lead with their staff. And it's not just managing, being a good manager, it's being a good leader. It's identifying how to move the organization, develop their staff, really create a vision, communicate that vision, ensure everybody's moving towards a shared vision. Political savvy, it's not so much what you were saying, although that's part of it. How emotionally intelligent are they? Are they able to kind of read a room, know when it's time to be quiet, know when it's time to listen, know when it's time to talk and what to say? When they say something wrong, how do they correct themselves quickly? It's all that emotional intelligence that you'd be looking for. Customer service. We don't make widgets in cities and counties. The only thing we provide is service. So customer service minded is going to be number one. And that's also going to be something that's going to be part of their vision. So it's going to be important that they're bought into customer service. Communications, community engagement, that goes along with everything I just said. And then responsiveness. I think you can have all those things and then not respond to your elected officials, your staff, or your community, and it doesn't matter how good you are in the other areas. You could have, you can maybe not be successful. And then somebody I think that I'm hearing a lot, and some communities care more about it than others, is how are we being transparent? How are we being inclusive? How are we showing, how are we valuing diversity, building equity? Oops. It's okay, I'm done with that page. So that's the end of that question. I don't know if you have any other questions for that.
I do have a couple of questions. First of all, and you may have these already in your other questions.
Yeah.
Do you do a pretty thorough deep dive of the candidate's employment history?
So in the beginning stages, we do a light touch on that.
Okay.
We do some search on that for whatever might be public, but We really don't recommend you doing a deep background and reference check until you get down to the final candidate.
Okay, and is that something you conduct too?
Yes, we have a retired police chief from the city of Grants Pass that works for us as a consultant. He has his own investigative employee investigation business, and he's been doing all of our reference checks and investigative backgrounds as needed. And we do a third party when we don't do an investigative background. The services we offer include the intense reference check as well as the basic background, local, state, federal. I think we also do a search for some other things. I don't have the list in front of me, but it's a long list.
Because I'd be concerned about what was the reputation of the candidate at their last posting.
Yeah, so that is something that we can try to get from our references that are included in the package that we responded to. But right now, we're doing the city manager recruitment, or recently did a city manager recruitment where they wanted us to do a more investigative process. And our consultants going out to that community to try and see what else they might be able to find.
My other question is, how do you manage to get this all done in 12 weeks?
So I think that we have a team. So I have 5 people on my team. I have another executive recruiter on my team. She has 5 people on her team. So we work in teams. I don't do everything, but even when I did, I just had less recruitments. I could do my recruitments in 12 weeks. So I've always done them. My response to that is, if I'm going to work that hard reaching out to candidates, I don't want to lose them by the time we get to interview. So I work really hard to get good people, and I want to move quickly while I have their interest or before somebody else gets their interest. And so it's worked really well for us and my clients. So,
Good, thank you, because we are interested in proceeding quickly with this.
Okay.
Councilor Court?
I just want to piggyback on Councilor Morton's question, because I think we're on the same vein here. References are going to be people who are going to say nice things about the candidate, obviously. Is there any way to find out more about their reputation?
Yeah. So usually we start with asking them to give us a 360 perspective, 2 people they've reported to, 2 people of significance leadership position that have reported to them, and then 2 people to the side. Usually that includes a peer or a community member that they have to work with. So those would be the kinds of things that we'd be asking for. If they're not currently city managers right now, they might want to include an elected official to the side. So we have a 360 perspective. We get at least 5 of those 6. That's our requirement. And if we don't get the right references or the ones I would expect I would be able to get, I ask why this person or that person's not on there. So we ask for additional information or additional references to help satisfy that. I'll also be working with your HR to say, hey, these are the references we have. Do you have any concerns or anything you think is missing? Or if I'm working with a subcommittee on council, I would be sharing that information with you.
Keep rolling.
Okay. The next question, talk about your different experiences in recruiting city managers, candidates for the Public Northwest and the West in general. Would you say that there are unique skills, experience, and knowledge for a prospective candidate to be successful in this area of the country? I mentioned that I've lived most of my life in California, now almost half my life in Oregon, so I'm not going back. Oregon is a great state. I love Oregon. I know I'm still 3 hours-ish, 3.5 hours south of you. I don't know your region as well. Again, I think my marketing background, I'm going to keep going back to that, helps me identify what's unique about your community, what's unique about you, what's unique about your history and your town. And that translates into me helping identify what's unique and how that connects with the person. I always say, if I've done my job, everybody who comes to the table or comes to the interview should be able to do the job, and hopefully are well in alignment with regards to a connection. Really, once it gets to the interviews, it's more about a match, an interpersonal match, a leadership match. That's usually where you'll have a lot of different people. We're always looking for the superhero. When we get to interviews, it's identifying where the gaps are and how risky are some of those gaps, and how difficult will it be to close those gaps up once a person comes on board. So there's always going to be gaps from different candidates. So there are different strengths. I don't think I answered that question completely. What I can tell you is the city manager recruitments that we've done, I've got a list I can share with you. It's not a lot, so you'll see I have a lot more on that proposal I responded to. So for a long time, I didn't have a city manager recruitment that I had done, so when I would respond to a proposal, unless I had a relationship with the council, they're like, hey, this person's done 150 or 300 city manager recruitments. I don't know who this person is. We don't have any track record of city manager recruitment, so we didn't get the recruitments. I just stopped responding to the city manager recruitments. I started getting phone calls from council elected officials. The first one was City of Ventura, City of Oxnard. And saying that they'd had experiences with other recruiters before, they'd heard about us, they'd like to use us. So that's kind of what rolled on. Ventura heard about us because they're right next to Oxnard, and then I said, okay, now I got a couple on my belt, I'll start responding. So I'm still facing that challenge. I don't think that having more city manager recruitments underneath you makes you a better recruiter or makes you any more capable of doing a city manager recruitment. I still am able to reach all the city managers via the association, Oregon, California, or whatever. I can reach them all. Phone numbers, email addresses. They're very accessible via LinkedIn and other social media ways. So the city managers you can reach. Assistant city managers, not as easy. Certainly a little harder to reach, but we can. But with today's social media, it's less about the relationships you have and the people you have in your database, and more about how to use that effectively. So, all right, moving forward.
One more question.
Councilor Court?
Yes.
I think the mayor mentioned at our last meeting that there are 9 city manager positions available right now, currently
Yep.
somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
How are you going to make us kind of rise to the top of the?
So I've had some recruitments where people, it makes my job really easy because the organization has a great reputation. A lot of that has to do with how you all work together. So a city manager's position, a lot of times they'll really look at a lot of past videos of how you all work together and who you are as a community, and reputation and what you're doing. That's exciting. So some people are into economic development or other kinds of things. And listen, you're all not supposed to get along because that's why we have 7 of you and not 5, not 1. So you're supposed to have different perspectives, viewpoints, and you're both supposed to be representing different people in your community. That's what it's all about. But how you handle that is what I think city managers are going to be looking for. From what I've seen, you guys have a great reputation, you have a great community, you all work pretty well together. Those are going to be really important things for you to recognize that that's going to leverage you above other people. A lot of times right now, people are looking for that next phase. So what is the City of Independence doing with regards to, and how will that enhance this person's job or make this job exciting? So those are things that we'll be able to talk about and I'll be able to market. And then all the other things are important too. Location is a huge one. A lot of times people are not looking to leave. It's for the same reason you're not looking. You wouldn't want to leave your community. And so we have to make it something attractive for them. Why would they want to come here? So we'll talk about that in the brochure. You can see in our brochures, we try to find all the unique things about each community, enhance that and entice them. And then, so different people are going to want to be here that aren't going to want to be in the city of Gold Hill, 4 hours south of here. So.
Okay. One last question. Given the uniqueness of our community and the size and I think we have a pretty good reputation in the state. How many, based on your experience, how many candidates do you think we might be able to draw in?
Based on my experience and what I hear from other people, we get a lot more candidates than most of my competition. So I don't know the firm very well that I'm competing with in this city, but we get a lot.
Okay.
We do really good marketing, so,
Okay.
Let's see. Next question. Do you think it's important for your firm to be able to be in person for communications with the mayor and council throughout the recruitment process? Does your proposal include or foresee that service? It's in there if we need to be here. I would recommend a hybrid process whenever possible, just to be able to make things more effective, efficient, and honestly more cost effective. So those would be things we would talk about in our kickoff meeting.
Because I can't
Anytime you
imagine-
can be in person, it's obviously better.
At this point, I can't imagine those final interviews with candidates and hiring simply from a video screen.
Yeah, there's hybrid options, and we could talk about that, but it's not something we have to talk about right now. I think that either way, it's definitely included if we want to do in person, and I agree with you. I think it's
Thank
hard.
you.
Yeah.
In your last minute or two here, anything you'd like to use as closing, or how?
I just want to see, I'll take half of that by just asking if there's any questions that somebody really wants to ask before I'm done? No? Okay. I think in closing, the only thing we really didn't get to is the detail of the process of what, how we do recruitment. So I thought I'd just share maybe a minute on that. So after we put all this nice brochures together, we do all the marketing campaign, we go out there, we get the candidates, we talked about the phone screens. That's a very critical part of the process. Then we bring forward candidates that we would recommend that you consider for an interview. And that's usually a short list of twice as many as you'd actually invite to interview. Gives you a chance to see my A and my B list and people, why I did include some people that's resumes might looked really good but didn't do so well with the phone screen. We give you as much information as you'd like. I will give the HR director access to our applicant tracking system. She can go on and look anytime she'd like to be able to track that. And if I have a subcommittee, they can have access as well. So then we move forward to identifying those candidates. We move forward, we develop the questions. We also will put together a panel for you. So in our kickoff meeting, we'll talk about what you want that panel to look like. Can't invite everybody, obviously, so it'd be important for us to strategize about, what does that look like? Who should that include? Do we want a panel of department heads? What should that look like? There's a lot of different ways we can put this together. So I would talk to you about the pros and cons about what that looks like. And then, the opportunity that you'll get from including those panels or not. And then the final process is just hearing from everybody about what they thought that's in that process. But the decision-making is still yours. So I just want to make sure you understand that we're very inclusive. We try to be as inclusive as you would like to be. And then information is gathered and given to you, and then you take that information and interview the candidates that were recommended to move forward in the process. And then you can take all of that information and the people that you've asked to be involved, in addition to you making a final decision-making process and interview. So I don't want you to think that my inclusivity and those kinds of things will by any means take away your ability to be able to make any final decisions. So.
Well,
The only other thing is check my references. I have great references. People really like us. We do a great job and we really care. The one thing I do care about is what people feel after we've been with their community, after they've had an experience with us. That's what it's all about for us. If I could do this job for free, I would. I really enjoy this job. We really care about our clients. We care about our candidates, and we care about finding you great people to. I'm not a public servant any longer, but this is my way to be a public servant, bringing great other public servants to other communities. So that's how I'll end.
Great. Thank you very much for taking the time to come and visit with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Council members, let's take a short break till 7:30 to allow the other folks to come in, get themselves set up, and sound good? Okay, back here at 7:30. Good? Karen, are you good? All right, we're back from a short recess, and we now have Jensen Strategies, who will be making our next presentation. Good evening, and welcome to the Independence City Council and to the City of Independence. You have half an hour to talk to us, and the time is now yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity coming here to be able to present our proposal. We're really excited at the prospect of doing this recruitment, so we hope we do get the opportunity. But this evening, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our firm, tell you a little more about some of the scope highlights that we had in our proposal, answer some of the questions that aren't covered by that you had submitted to us, as well as tell you why we think we're the best firm for this particular recruitment. So, but before I start, I'd like to introduce Emily Reeder. Emily is our office manager, but she's much more than that. She handles all the logistics of the recruitments and makes sure that the recruitments are going forward on a day-to-day basis. So she is invaluable. Let me just kind of dive into this, and we do have handouts for you. So some leave behind in case you want to review a little bit more. But just to tell you a little bit about us, we are management consultants that are based in Portland. So we're a hop, skip, and a jump away from you folks. We can be down here in person anytime that you need us. So we want you to know that we are very accessible. We also do different types of services. We do recruitments, which is a major part of our services. But we also do goal setting, we do visioning, strategic planning, organizational assessments, and we work with cities across Oregon. And in fact, all of our clients are from Oregon or have been from Oregon, with the exception of one, which was Clark County. And I think I forgot to take the exit off the freeway and went across, and then all of a sudden realized I was doing a jail sighting. But other than that, we work exclusively in Oregon, and we have been doing this since 2000, well, actively since 2013. One of the things that is a hallmark of our firm is that we are a neutral party in everything that we do. Every service that we provide, we are neutral. We do not do any political campaigns. We do not do any lobbying. We are strictly a neutral party in everything that we do. Our clients are all over the state, and we've worked from Hermiston all the way out to Cannon Beach, and we've worked from St. Helens all the way down to Medford. So we've kind of run the gamut. We work with one of the things that really we brag about is that we know cities. We know all the disciplines that cities work with, from everything from law enforcement to public works to HR to finance. And so we're very familiar with all the functions of city government. We also know the Willamette Valley very well because a good portion of our clients are from the Willamette Valley. I'd like to also point out, in terms of the team that we have in addition to Emily, in addition to Amelia, who I think you've seen in the proposal, we have a team of experts, a team of former public administrators that help us. We have Ellen Conley, who's a former Washington County Deputy County Administrator and former Assistant City Manager of Hillsborough. Isaac Dixon, who most recently was the Vice President of HR for Portland State University. Dave Waffle, who used to be the City Manager of Cornelius, and the Beaverton Assistant Finance Director. And then, of course, myself, I used to be an administrator with the city of Hillsborough. I was the director of administration in Hillsborough. So we all have a deep bench. These other folks come and help us on these recruitments as needed. So they're not full-time, but they're very much involved in the recruitments. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Bottom line is, we know Oregon. So let me talk about the scope. And we've got some pages in there about the scope, and I'll generally follow along with that. There's three main parts of the scope. One is the profile development, the other is the advertising and the outreach, and the other is the candidate selection. With the profile development, that's hugely important because we want to develop a candidate profile that fits Independence. Not that fits Beaverton, not that fits Caboose. We want one that fits you. And so we take the time to really make sure that that happens. The profile is kind of our holy grail because, first of all, it's the foundation for the brochure that we put out and advertising the position. Second of all, it is the basis of which we develop the criteria for evaluating everything from the applications all the way through the finalist process. So it is a foundational document. You may also know that it is statutorily required. ORS 192.660, public meeting law, requires you to adopt a candidate profile and hiring process that's had public review in order for you to be able to hold executive sessions on the hiring process. So to this end, we go above and beyond in trying to reach out to folks and find out what it is that you need in the next city manager. And to that end, we do individual interviews with all the council and the management team with your city. We do surveys and input sessions with community and with staff. And we pull all of that together into a document that we bring back to you in a work session and have you give us feedback. And then at that point, we will tailor it for adoption. And then you'll move forward and adopt that. Then we move on to the advertising, the outreach portion. And with that, we develop the brochure and the ads. And like I said, that's all part of the candidate profile. That we use that as the foundation. We develop an advertising plan. We have about 24 organizations that we typically advertise with, but we also try to make sure that we're hitting the ones that are getting at the locations and places that you would like to reach out to. But beyond that, we do proactive recruitment, which means I pick up the phone, I'm well connected in Oregon, and I start looking for candidates. And 9 times out of 10, I've got people in mind already, and encourage them to apply if I think that they fit the profile that you're looking for in your next city manager. So there's quite a bit of outreach that happens at that level. So then we move on to the candidate selection. And with the selection process, we start with the review of the applications. And I mentioned that team of experts, if you will. That team of experts is going to be reviewing the applications that come in against the profile, using criteria developed from the profile. And so you have a seasoned group of people who have either been city managers or public administrators that are doing the ratings of the applications. Then we move on to semi-finalist interviews. We normally pick about 10 of the candidates and we interview them by Zoom to see whether or not what we see on paper is actually what we're seeing, at least on screen. Sometimes when you see something on screen, it's different than in person. That's another story. So based on that, and again, it's that team of experts that's doing the interviews, the people who have been administrators already. So the next part is that then we come to you And we put together a notebook that has all the applications in it, has information that we've been able to find on the internet. It has also some information from the interviews as well. And we bring this to you in executive session, and then we walk you through everybody we've interviewed. And at that point, we do offer you some recommendations of those that we thought rated higher than others. But the bottom line is, this is your decision. It's not our decision. So what we're looking for from you in that executive session is to identify 4 finalists, up to 4 finalists, that will move forward into the process. So we move on from that, and then we start the finalist process. In the interim, between the time that we go to the finalist week to the time that we, between then and the finalist week, we do background checks on the finalists, and we also do reference checks. And I'll tell you that the reference checks, we ask them for 4 references: somebody that they have supported as an elected official, somebody that they have had as a subordinate who was a direct report to them, and then 2 other professional references. But beyond that, we're pretty well connected in Oregon and outside of Oregon. And so we go what I call off the grid. And we do reference checks with people that were not given to us to see what additional information that we can get. So the finalist week ends up being 4 sequential days. The first day is usually 2 receptions, 1 reception for the staff, 1 reception for the community. And in COVID times, we've been doing those by Zoom. We've also done them in person. We can go either way. The next day, and then we have surveys that we send out or ask people to fill out as they're leaving with regard to their impressions of the candidates. Following that, then we have a day of panels. We have an administrator panel of other local administrators, their peers, so to speak. We have a community leader panel, which we ask for you to help us identify. And then we also have a department head panel. So those 3 panels interview the candidates on that second day. Usually it's a Wednesday. Then the following day, we have the council interviews. The council interviews are longer for obvious reasons, and we will have the candidates meet with the council and interview that day. That's usually the Thursday. And then on the Friday, we have the council deliberations, and we will help facilitate your decision-making process. But part of that day is going to be us downloading information to you about what we heard from the receptions, what we heard from the panels, what we heard from the background checks, what we heard from the reference checks. We have a plethora of information that's shared with you before you start your deliberations. So you will have your impressions from your interview, plus that information to be able to have your discussion. So one of the things that I wanted to also mention is that when we're doing the proactive calling of candidates, I just want to backtrack just a little bit. You asked a question about some of the, how did we get those connections, and what were some of the ethical concerns around that? We got those connections because I've been a member of OCCMA, the City Managers Group, for 20 years. I know most of the city managers in the state, and I know a lot of the staff in the state. And so I have a number of different connections to be able to reach out. We also keep current by going to the LOC conference, going to OCCMA conference, going to the ICMA conference, and keeping up with our connections there. And in terms of the ethical piece, one of the things that we don't do is we don't reach out to any candidates, potential candidates, who have been in their job less than 2 years, because the ICMA Code of Ethics says that city managers need to stay in position for 2 years. Otherwise, they're in violation of the tenets of ICMA, unless it's for cause and it's not voluntary. But so we will never proactively go after a potential candidate who hasn't served their 2 years. Okay, so I want to answer a few of the other questions that you had. You asked about candidate attributes and success skills. I think it's question number 2 and 3, if I recall correctly. And first of all, I want to say that profile that we talked about is paramount. That's really where we're going to find out who is best, or what type of person is best for this community and for you. But I'll give you some of the takeaways that we've had from the recruitments that we've done. So some of the attributes that we do look for, regardless of what assuming that the city agrees, is we look for somebody who's got management skills, somebody who can manage an organization that has a multidisciplinary function, from police to fire to library to HR, to be able to do that kind of management and employ best management practices. We look for someone who understands the role of the city manager and understands that the city manager is running the operations and implementing the policy of the city council, and that the city manager is a liaison between council and staff in terms of giving overall direction. We also look for people who have strategic vision. This is something that every client that we've had wants. Somebody who's thinking 10 steps ahead, somebody who's looking to implement the goals of the council, the community vision, the strategic plan. That's been in every one of our recruitments. Somebody who is adaptable and flexible. Things don't stay the same. Things change. And you need somebody who has the ability to pivot when it's time to pivot, but keep the course. And in terms of Oregon, and geographically speaking, somebody who has the ability and hopefully experience to understand Oregon land use, Oregon finance, and the expectations in the Northwest for community engagement and transparency in local government, which is much more prevalent here than it is in the rest of the country, in our experience. So those are the things that we look for. You asked about being in person. We're happy to be in person anytime you want. Typically, we're here for the executive session. We're here for the finalist week. But we can be down here for any part of this process. In terms of diversity and a diverse pool, Isaac Dixon is an expert in DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Isaac is our person that we look to give us guidance. He is very well connected with the BIPOC community in Oregon and has been really helpful for us in terms of reaching out. I will say that in the last 4 recruitments, all of the placements have been women. So we have had some success on the gender front from that standpoint. And it is pretty well known that in the city manager world, it is predominantly a male-dominated world. And so the last 4 have been women. So, okay, let me just wrap up and say, why us? First of all, we're Portland-based. We can be down here in an hour and a half and be ready to meet with you anytime you want. Second, we have a very strong Oregon network. We are connected, we keep our connections current, and we work with councils and staff all over the state. Third, our Willamette Valley experience and knowledge. We have worked a lot in the Willamette Valley for recruitments, Carlton, Sheridan, Staten, Scappoose, if you want to go that far north. But other projects that we've worked with, Albany, Corvallis, Dallas, Lebanon, McMinnville, Tigard, Wilsonville, Woodburn, all in the Willamette Valley. So we have a pretty good understanding of the issues in this particular geographic region. And so that's another strength we bring to the table. Fourth, we have that team of experts, the team of administrators that we bring to the table to help us with this process. And they bring a lot of valuable years of experience. Fifth, we have a very comprehensive and thorough process. I have not seen another recruitment firm that has been as thorough as us in terms of evaluating candidates and in terms of running an inclusive process and giving the council the information that you need to make a decision. When we go into the executive session, we will give you written summaries of what came out of the receptions, the panels, so forth. Six, our knowledge of Oregon recruitment and public meeting law. We understand veterans' preference, we understand public meeting law, so we'll keep things on the straight and narrow. And then lastly, on the diversity outreach with Isaac Dixon and with our experience so far, we can bring that to the table as well. So with that, I would just say it would be an honor to be able to work with you folks.
Great. I know that there's some questions, and I'm going to start off with the first question, if I might, in the last 7 or 8 minutes that we have. In looking at your list of previous city manager recruitments, there are a lot of smaller cities, and many of them are not, frankly, as dynamic as some of the things that we've got going here, and you've noticed that in some of our information. Can you talk about getting how you folks will reach out to get the folks with the right skill set to do the kinds of things that are in our 2040 plan, as we are a pretty dynamic, and our reputation, we are a pretty dynamic community, and I'd love to hear a little bit of your thoughts on that, please.
Sure. Well, in terms of the cities we've worked with, if you average it out, the average population we work with is 6,300. We've worked with a couple of cities that are larger than yours. But I would say that our ability to be able to bring in those cutting edge folks, if you will, is pretty strong. Because if we know that you're looking for a particular bent of interest or expertise, we have the ability to reach out to those particular types of people. Now, I'll also tell you just a little bit about my experience. When I was at the city of Hillsborough, I ran the visioning process there. I teach visioning for the League of Oregon Cities. And I also did the first strategic plan for Hillsborough as well. So I know a lot about what you need in terms of a person that's going to think forward and think tangibly about what steps do you need to be able to take to keep that momentum going and to keep that edge, if you will. So I feel pretty confident we could do that.
Yeah. Councilor Kerr, I saw your hand.
Thank you. I think your Oregon and particularly your Willamette Valley experience is important, but there are 9 city manager positions available right now in the state. I'm not at all against an out-of-state applicant. In fact, I think sometimes that brings a lot of really good experience and perspective. What's your experience with placing out-of-state applicants?
With out-of-state applicants, we get them in every single recruitment. And in fact, one of our hires was an out-of-state candidate down in North Bend, David Milliron, came from Georgia, and was a very strong candidate during that process. But our experience in terms of, first of all, we, unless instructed otherwise, we advertise nationally. And so we get candidates from all over the country. If those candidates make it through to the finals, then we start vetting them, and we have enough connections through ICMA to be able to reach out and to vet those candidates just as much as we could for Oregon.
Please.
We are a diverse community, and I said this earlier this evening too, is that a lot of times we listen to the voices of the people who shout the loudest on either the left or right-hand side of politics. And I appreciate that you said that you don't look into politics, but every example you've given us tonight is a foundation in Portland politics, the League of Oregon Cities or other organizations that you say that you'd like to select a candidate from. So me, I'm really concerned now that your targeted candidate or a candidate that you decide would fit well for independence is not what independence is looking for. But I'm concerned that you're not going to be able to divorce the politics of Portland in order to look for what we need in independence. Because I don't want it to be a select pool of people that you can reach out to, that you're connected to. I want it to be the best candidate, regardless of the boxes they check, to fill this role for independence. And so I'm concerned with how can you separate yourself from Portland. And as I speak from my people or my constituency who talks to me, we don't want Portland politics and independence.
Well, first of all, as I said at the very beginning, we are not a political organization. And we want to find the candidate that meets the needs of independence. And so I'm not sure what you would expect in terms of keeping Portland politics out, but we're not bringing Portland politics to the table. We're bringing expertise. We're bringing city manager expertise. And city managers are not supposed to be political. City managers are supposed to be apolitical. And that's one of the things that we look for in a candidate, is someone who is not going to be political, but it's going to be about moving the process and supporting the council and the policies of the council moving forward and manage the organization effectively and efficiently.
So there's a couple minutes left, and would you like to do a wrap-up, or how would you like to, in your last 2 minutes?
Okay. Well, it's nice to actually come in under time for once. So, I would just say, take a look at that last page in our packet. I think that you'll find that our firm is going to bring a lot to the table in terms of the needs of independence, and that we understand the Willamette Valley, and we understand the needs, and that we are going to listen to you and make sure that all voices on the council are heard in putting together the profile. And so we're really excited about this. And to work with a city such as yours that is on cutting edge would just be fantastic. So would appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much for taking the time to come and join us this evening. I appreciate it, and thank you. It's been wonderful to hear from you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Great.
Thank you.
So, councilors, what I'd like to suggest that we do here is take a few minutes and think about the pluses and minuses of the two presentations we've heard, and I'd like to kind of go through that and just hear from what people are thinking on pluses and minuses, the first group, pluses and minuses of the second one. We'll all go through the first one, then we'll all go through the second one. Does that sound okay? So let's take three. Do you want to take a recess to do this, or do you want to just, what I'm trying to do is so people don't have to watch us scribbling. So let's take 5 minutes and scribble just your thoughts, positive and negative, on each one, and then I'll start on one side, and we'll go to one side, and we'll go the other way. Sound okay?
Yes.
All right, so we'll take a 5-minute work time, so I guess that's a technical recess. Karen, you good? Okay, we're back from recess here, and what I'd like to do is we'll go with WBCP first, and what I'd like to hear from each person is the pluses and minuses that they saw that they think. And I'm going to start at one end for this one, I'll start at the other end for the other one, okay? Counselor Kaur, please.
Biggest plus for me was their marketing strengths. I think that's going to be key for us in a state with 9 open positions right now. The only minus I heard that really impacted my decision-making is their local engagement process doesn't seem as well thought out as the other companies.
Okay. I'm scribbling for myself also as a, Counselor Job?
At first, I thought a lot of work in California was a negative, but actually, you know, in reading more and listening to the presentation, I think there's so many references that it actually became a plus for me in my opinion on it. A lot of good references. I didn't get to ask about the retention rate past 3 years, but I really liked the 12 weeks to get it done, and I think that in the private sector, you do move like that, and so it's a little bit different than the public sector where there's more regulations and, you know, it's just a different feel. But in the private sector, I think that she is determined, and her team, you know, it sounds like they can get it done, and they're very confident in it. So I really appreciated that.
Did you have any negatives you wanted to?
Well, it started out with being from California.
Okay.
Or doing most of the work in California, but
Okay.
it turned into a positive.
Counselor?
I appreciate the fact they're offering us a 2-year guarantee on their recruitment versus 1 year elsewhere. And I initially had some similar reservations regarding California, but in looking at the list, they're not working in huge California metropolises. So I think we might find on that client list some areas of similar population and values to ours. Honestly, I love the fact that it's a woman-owned business. We don't always pay the attention that we should to those. And I guess on the con is not a lot of work, particularly here in the Valley. We're a little different here. And I may have just missed it. Didn't hear a lot of mention regarding affiliations, long-term affiliations with some of the professional organizations throughout the state.
Okay. Sorry, I'm scribbling also.
Okay.
Counselor Morton?
Well, I want to say first that I think both of these companies would bring a lot of experience to bear and would be able to get the job done. Given that, yes, WBCP has an extreme amount of experience. They've also been in business 10 years longer than the other company, but they are not Oregon-centric, and I think that makes a difference. I appreciated their 12-week process. That is more appealing to have it go by and get done quickly. And that's not anything to reflect on our interim city manager. I just would like to see the position filled.
Yes, it is.
They have a well-defined process, but it almost feels a little bit like an assembly line to me. They have, as Kathy said, they have a less intimate network relative to Oregon. They are definitely highly qualified, and my conclusion was they are more experienced but less Oregon-centric.
Okay. Counselor Roden, please.
I liked that they didn't have too many affiliations with these groups, either positive or negative. At least they can give an outside perspective on some things that I think is going to be important for our community. I like that they have new, fresh lenses to our community, new perspectives, can bring, fresh ideas and not necessarily from the select pool of people that they'd like to choose from, but actually seek out seek out with their marketing campaign the best recruitment that can come here instead of putting their opinions and thoughts into who should be there, but actually representing our city well when finding the candidates. And sometimes I think it's important that that we look at the people that are new to the city manager recruitment, because sometimes when you play a game repeatedly, you just get used to it and you just keep going on the same pattern. And sometimes it's good to bring in someone who is new to finding a city manager so that they're going to work really hard. I felt like their presentation told me that they're going to work really hard to get us the best candidate. And so I appreciated that about them.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I'd have to go with the marketing, and thinking about, we like to say we punch above our weight and everything. I think they would project a better image of independence to recruits and perhaps attract a candidate that would be, more to what we're looking for to keep us on that level. And it just seemed like it's just a much more professional presentation. And maybe it's just really slick, but for some reason I just felt a lot better, like everything was all under control and, Okay. Do you want to start going the other way now?
Well, no, I think it's important I weigh in also.
Oh, yes,
I don't want to leave anybody hanging out. I thought the positive things that, they have broad reach. They worked with lots of communities, different sizes, and they may have an ability to reach out to a larger pool of candidates. I didn't feel as strongly on their organization in the presentation, and not sure if they fully understand yet the dynamics of our community, but that's a hard one at this point for, I just offer that as a thought. So, okay. Let's go back the other way, and Councilor Takis, let's start with the pluses and minuses of Jensen.
So, of course, understanding Oregon, they know like land use laws was a big thing he mentioned. That's important, understanding what you need to do with that. But I almost felt it was too Oregon-centric, if that's such a thing, that maybe we do want to look a little bit beyond, because I think both, WBCP also does work in Oregon. Their main office is in Oregon. I think by now they would have a pretty good understanding about some of the things that go on. And the other thing that I think Jensen has going for it is it's more city manager specific recruitments, which is probably a very good thing. And also they're more accessible in Portland.
Okay. Well, I'm still ready. Thank you. Councilor Roden.
I liked that they knew the job requirements for city manager, but I felt, again, that both parties represented that pretty well. I honestly felt, and I think Councilor Kaur said it in our last meeting, that it's really hard to separate your politics from you as an individual. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but that's what I felt that you said. And everything that they said in today's speech or in their presentation just kind of told me that they could not separate politics from what they were going for. Every example they gave was a foundation in Portland politics, in Portland cities, in Portland organizations, in some organizations that are very political and, and actually lobby for certain interests in our group. I don't want that. I don't want someone to come in with Portland politics. I don't want someone to come in, and even in the packet, it says they're going to be targeting specific people. He knows of specific people that he would present this to. I'm not looking for someone that he wants to or they want to find specifically. I want them, and I felt like WBPC is going to throw out a huge net for people instead of him fishing from a little pond. And so that's my concern with Jensen.
Okay. Councilor Morton.
I was impressed with the emphasis that he brought us back to time and time again on the importance of the candidate profile. I was also very pleased to hear that they did a much deeper dive on background checking than I think the other company was talking about doing, because we were told that they did the background checks based on the information given by the candidate, and then they did their own independent background checks with other people who were not on the list but would have information about them. Yes, there's a familiarity with Oregon and with the Willamette Valley, and I was a little bit concerned that they did all their hiring out of Oregon, and I was going to ask that until he said one of the latest hires was from Georgia being placed in North Bend, and that everything was advertised nationally. The significance of all the Oregon connections, it's going to be up to us in many ways to keep the politics out of things, because it does not matter what organization you are connecting with. There's always going to be whoever is at the top, whoever is in nominal control will have some political leanings. And that is, we need to be on guard, whoever is hired, that we don't let personal politics in any way interfere with doing the job that is being asked of them to do. I wish that their 18-week process was shorter, and I'd like to think that maybe some time could be shaved off of that. And I will close by just saying, as I said before, either one of these candidates would be good doing the job. This one has less experience, but more understanding of Oregon.
Okay. What I have is that I had both its pluses and minuses. The strong knowledge of Oregon is a strength, but I think a strong knowledge of Oregon is also a potential limiting factor. It cuts both ways. The strength that they know folks, they're connected, and they feel a little bit more personable just from just sitting here, and them physically being closer might be a little bit more hand-holding. Negative, as I mentioned, was that they are so heavily focused in Oregon, although they did mention the hire to North Bend, to that city manager, and they're a little bit smaller operation. So that's those are the things that we think about. So now we know what everybody's thinking.
No, you haven't gone down the rest of the road.
I'm sorry. I went out of work.
So you just didn't go in the final position.
We forgive you.
I messed.
Smack in the middle.
Well, I was scribbling. Please, I apologize. I was scribbling so hard.
I did not feel slighted.
I wanted to do a good job for my colleagues. Please, Kathy, save me.
So I initially kind of went, Portland-based, and checked myself and thought, if we were to exclude every company and organization that does business in the city of Portland, then we would be drastically limiting our scope. So I think that in itself, standalone, is an unfair argument. It does put them within really close proximity, and for what we're about to endure, I'm going to say, I've gone through this process before. Proximity can be everything, and getting someone here quickly versus they have to come down the night before and added expensive lodging and all of that. I like the fact that they understand the valley. I think that they have, and I agree with Councilor Morton, either of these firms, in the end, I'm sure would get the job done. I like the fact that they are Oregon-based. Not all of the organizations that he mentioned are local, regional. Those are national organizations as well. And so I think that does broaden their scope. And like I said, they've worked a lot in some communities pretty close to us. They've worked with some smaller communities, and I think they're open to seeing and hearing what we specifically are looking looking for and going out and finding that for us. So.
Okay.
So the positives were basically Oregon-based. I mean, they're doing a lot of work in Oregon right now. They are newer, so they don't have as much, for history, but I do appreciate that. I guess the one thing that really does concern me, and I think of as a negative, is the comment about the last 4 city managers being women. I am a woman. I am not disadvantaged. I am not a victim. I actually think I'm capable of pretty much doing anything. And so I would hate for someone to feel like they got this position because they were a woman, or that we're not, look at us, everybody up here, we're successful. Women in this room are successful. And so I really want to get past that the gender, and just look at the skills. What do they have to bring? And I just feel like he's already started off with the focus is, let's get something diverse in here. And I'm all about diversity, but bring it, bring your skills to the table, and absolutely we will pick you. So that's what I have to say about that.
Counselor Coeur.
I just want to clear the air that I didn't say anything about politics, and I have enough recruitment experience to know that the best recruiters are neutral as they should be, and I have every confidence that both companies will be neutral. On the plus side, I thought they had a sound strategy and a more robust local engagement plan. On the negative side, the networking discussion led me to believe that we may just get the next name on the list, and that's not something I want to entertain necessarily. I'm also not necessarily persuaded by their proximity. We've been living in a Zoom world for 2 years now. We can adapt.
Okay. How do we want to move it forward? We've got 2, and we've now heard, now that I got everybody here. Again, I apologize for that. Who do you want to have?
How do we do that? Do we?
Well, we decide. There's 7 of us here, and we're going to make a decision.
My vote is for Debbie.
One, or
Make a motion, or what?
Well,
How do you wanna do it?
let's talk, I think we've all heard what we've all thought, and I don't know if we need to have lots more discussion. I was making you a counselor now there, Karen, that, I don't know, is that up or down?
See how easy it is?
Karen, yes, go ahead.
I just want to be sure that at some point you declare that you're going to be back out of the work session
Okay.
and into a regular meeting before you take your vote.
Okay, thank you for pointing it out. Is any objection for us going out of work session? I now declare the work session over, and I now open the regular council meeting. Okay, we need to make a decision.
We could make a motion for one over another and see how the voting goes with that. At
Yeah,
least it gets it on the table.
we could do that. I'm open to whatever you want to do.
well, how do I say that then, Karen?
Well, yeah, you can say, I move to, it's in the packet, but,
Why don't we do a straw poll like they do in a jury and say how many people are leaning towards one and the other and move from there?
Yeah, I agree.
anybody have a problem with that?
Nope.
Okay, how many folks are, I'm just taking them in the order they came. How many folks, question, can you say both ways? I mean, some people have said both are acceptable.
So,
But
Okay.
it also, we are being asked to make a decision of
Yeah,
one
so we
over
need
the
to
other.
decide.
Okay,
Can't
all
be
right.
that
Let's just do it. Okay, how many people are thinking that WBCP would be we got 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? And how many people are feeling Jensen would be the better one? We got 1, 2, and I can go either way.
I mean, either way is fine with me.
Same here.
Okay?
I'm not married to.
Okay, so I think we got a trend here.
So I move that the firm of WBPC be selected and authorize the city manager to execute a contract for those services.
Second?
The motion seconds, is there further discussion? I hear no further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay. I thought that was good. I want to thank you for the work that people did, and I know that people did, for those that are watching on TV, council did get a packet of information from both in advance, and people studied a lot in advance. And so
And I would like to say that my impression when I came here tonight was that whichever company we decided to choose, they were going to learn things from us.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I think they will. And we have a lot of work to do in the coming 3 months. Okay, any announcements, comments, anything needs to be done at this point?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Okay.
Happy holidays.
I'll offer a couple things, just as one.
Festivus.
Happy holidays to all of you and your families. I hope that the people who are watching tonight, please get the shots that you need. It's important. I was on a phone call recently, just a couple of days ago, with the director of the head doc with Oregon Health. And so please get your shots. It's nice to live in a community where so many good things are going on. And so I'll be down enjoying Glow this weekend. Well, not this weekend. Well, between now and it feels like the weekend. So anyway, if that's it, somebody say the word adjourn.
Well, I'd like to say that with the weather coming up, that people use a little extra caution on the roads that may be snowy and icy.
There you go.
I agree.
All right.
I'll be here next
Without objection, we're adjourned. Good evening.
Have a great
Can we leave these?